Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Ngaramtseneza. Welcome to the second day of the Land Forces Symposium with the theme Leveraging Land Forces Capabilities for Enhanced Implementation of Peace and Security Strategies. I'm Captain Ariel Sekamana, your administrative MC, as the main MC says it. Please permit me to give some administrative announcements. Ensure that all electronic devices are in silent mode. We have translations devices on each seat. If you don't have any, the protocol will assist. We will use channel 1 for English, channel 2 for French, channel 3 for Arabic, and channel 4 for Portuguese. For any other issues, please refer to anybody in the protocol team next to you. Thank you. Over to you, MC.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second day of the Land Forces Commanders Symposium 2025. Our third panel will discuss the theme, Cementing Civil-Military Cooperation through Citizen Outreach Programs. To guide this discussion is Ms. Chidi Blyden. Ms. Chidi Blyden is the CEO of Culturally Bound, a strategic advisory firm that leverages the global African diaspora civilian security sector solutions for Africa's growth and development. She served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for African Affairs of the US from 2021 to 2023. Ms. Blyden is an expert and social-cultural advisor on Africa's conflicts, security, and development issues. She comes to the role with policy, national security practitioner experience from her career in government, academia, and nonprofit sectors. Her work focuses on the impact of culture in developing policy and community-centric approaches to security challenges in African nations, underscoring the role of women and youth in peace and security. Ms. Blyden served in the Obama administration as the Special Assistant to the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for African Affairs from 2013 to 2017. She managed several functional and regional responsibilities, including U.S. Africa Defense Policy for East and Central Africa, served as Africa Peacekeeping Advisor to the Stability and Humanitarian Affairs Office, and was the department's lead on the President's Africa Peacekeeping Rapid Response Partnership Initiative. She has received several awards for her time in public service, including the Office of the Secretary of Defense Medal for Exceptional Public Service. Ms. Blyden began her career in security studies at the National Defense University Africa Center for Strategic Studies as the Senior Academic Research Associate and Academic Operations Coordinator. From 2007 to 2013, she contributed to the academic curriculum and led the execution of over 30 programs on counterterrorism, defense economics, conflict management, security studies, and civil-military relations for Africa's security sector professionals. She was the first Africa director at the Center for Civilians in Conflict, where she led the design and implementation of culture-specific training for the Nigerian Armed Forces on civilian harm at Jaji during Boko Haram crisis. Ms. Blyden recently served in Congress on the House Armed Services Committee policy team, advising on Africa and South America's defense equities. She has been an adjunct professor at Georgetown University in the Security Studies program. She is a graduate of Texas A&M University with a Bachelor of Science in Sociology and the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution at George Mason University with a Master's of Science in Conflict Analysis and Resolution, and serves on the board of the World Affairs Council of American Leadership Council, the Women's Foreign Policy Group, and SITA Arts Center. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Chidi to facilitate this discussion.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Excellencies, Chiefs of Defense, distinguished guests, and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and it is a privilege to open today's session with you all. Last night was truly a wonderful experience, and the camaraderie reminded me of just how dedicated this defense community is to Africa's peace and security. I want to add my thanks to those of others and express my gratitude to the government and the Ministry of Defense of Rwanda for hosting this year's Land Forces Chiefs of Staff Symposium and for their leadership in advancing peace and stability on the continent. The theme, leveraging land forces capabilities for enhanced implementation of peace security strategies, reminds us that true strength lies not only in command and capability, but in connection. The connection between our militaries and the citizens that we serve. The focus of our discussion, cementing civil-military cooperation through citizen outreach programs, goes to the heart of that relationship. My advisory work in civil-military relations over the years has shown that civilians are not passive beneficiaries of protection. They are active partners in security and peace building. This topic is near and dear to me, as I've spent my career in the US government ensuring that African militaries are equipped with the education, tools, and professionalism to protect their states, while continuously trying to build a bridge between the military and civilian worlds built out of my own experience. In 1994, I was a young teenage girl in Sierra Leone. My mother had been assigned to the UN to help with the democratic elections. This was around the beginning of the conflict in Sierra Leone that would later be known as the Blood Diamond War. The juxtaposition of my life in the US, where I knew clearly the role of the security sector and its protection to the state, and the country was strangely turned upside down as we watched rebels take hold of the villages across Sierra Leone. Across the continent, in Rwanda, a different type of conflict was emerging. As I heard the genocide over the BBC radio unfold and the international community struggle with its response, I wondered what the role was of not just the military security sector, but what civilians could anticipate would happen. As a privileged American, I was convinced that the international community would intervene. After all, it was the military's role to protect the citizens from enemies, from both foreign and domestic. In the summer of 1995, America evacuated its citizens from Sierra Leone, leaving behind the other half of my family. I am indeed a daughter of the continent. I was sure that the armed forces of Sierra Leone would restore peace and security to the country, but after a decade of war, it was actually a bilateral turned multilateral intervention by ECOMOG, led by Nigeria, that would liberate Sierra Leone. No one came, and the disconnect between the government, rebels, and civilian relationship stayed awry. Trust between the civilian and the military forces, trust between civilians and military forces had eroded. That was then, but I would say that this is a continued issue. And this trust, the foundation of civil-military cooperation, is increasingly being tested in this new age of warfare with digital advances, misinformation, and AI-driven disinformation. Yesterday's discussion honed in on the uses of technology. We cannot escape it. The information domain has become a new theater of conflict, one where perception can be weaponized as effectively as any physical force. The challenge before us now is how to defend truth with the same discipline we defend territory. Best practices in civil-military outreach remind us that trust is built before, during, and after crisis. The most effective programs emphasize three key principles: communication, co-creation, and consistency. Communication requires that military messages are transparent, timely, and culturally attuned. Co-creation means involving community leaders, women's groups, youth, local media as active partners in security messaging. And consistency means maintaining engagement, even in times of relative calm, because credibility cannot be built in moments of emergency. Successful outreach programs also prioritize listening as much as informing. Civilian feedback loops, liaison officers embedded in communities, and joint training initiatives all serve to humanize the military presence and turn security into a shared responsibility between security forces and civilians. These are foundations upon which long-term legitimacy and stability are built. We have an opportunity here as we watch the new age of technology take place and we watch the new age of warfare unfold. We have the use of technology as not a tool of just positivity, but also as a tool for launching and bounding forward. The task is to apply technology ethically, transparently, and inclusively, ensuring that our digital engagement strengthen but not erode the trust that we have with civilians. I look forward to our exchange today on how outreach, transparency, and the responsible use of technology can help enhance citizen and civilian engagement and reinforce the bond between armed forces, the security sector, citizens, and public institutions. I'm joined by an esteemed panel that will share their experiences and truly provide their deep insights into these challenges and opportunities. So to start off, let us please welcome Lt Gen Muhanga from Uganda. Lt Gen Muhanga serves as the commander of land forces of the Uganda People's Defense Forces. A veteran of Uganda's liberation struggle and subsequent peacekeeping efforts, he has held several senior command roles, including division commander, commander of UPDF contingent in Somalia, AMISOM, and head of Operation Shuja in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Lieutenant General Muhanga has been instrumental in developing Uganda's counterinsurgency doctrine, fostering regional cooperation, and strengthening community engagement in post-conflict stabilization efforts. His leadership style reflects Uganda's emphasis on discipline, operational precision, and the sustained building of trust with local populations during and after conflict. Sir, over to you.
The Army Chief of Staff of RDF, the Inspector General of Police, my fellow panelists here, the Army Chiefs of Staff, Stroke Commander Land Forces, generals here, all dignitaries present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First and foremost, I wish to thank the government of the Republic of Rwanda and the RDF leadership for the warm reception and hospitality accorded to me and my entourage. I also thank you for inviting us to share our experiences at this important forum of land forces. I'm called Lt General Kayanja Muhanga, the Commander Land Forces of the Uganda People's Defense Forces. On behalf of the UPDF, I salute you all in your respective capacities and convey warm greetings from the UPDF Chief of Defense Forces, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. We are gathered here today to engage in various discussions aimed at leveraging land forces capabilities in dealing with contemporary threats and finding solutions to the attendant operational challenges that we confront during the course of our work. Our topic today for discussion is cementing civil-military cooperation through citizen outreach programs. The UPDF perspective is what I will present this morning. Introduction: civil-military cooperation is the dynamic and complex relationship between a nation's armed forces and its civilian institutions and society. Key aspects of CIMIC involves ensuring the military is professional, that is, preventing it from becoming a threat to the people it serves. Civil-military relations refer to structural relationships between modern military forces and their host societies, including the dynamics of military involvement in state affairs and the expectations of citizenship related to military service. The UPDF doctrine is built on the core principles and goals of defending sovereignty, keeping internal security, engaging in regional/international cooperation, defense diplomacy, Pan-Africanism, and CIMIC. This presentation will address the following issues. Thus, the scope, background. CIMIC is one of the most important elements of stabilization operations within a conflict area. After the end of the Cold War, civil-military relations was introduced in order to harmonize the contribution of the armed forces and the civil society organizations in areas of operation. Over the years, when the conflicts became more complex, the use of military force only ended the war, but rarely stabilized the areas. As such, the non-military actors came in to try and find solutions without the use of force. The civilian actors used persuasion and negotiations to broker a peace agreement between the warring parties. Both civilians and military personnel worked together to win wars and stabilize the areas, but using different approaches. This integration is what gave birth to the concept of the civil-military cooperation, CIMIC. It was aimed at winning the hearts and minds of the people in the area of military operations using a non-violent approach, while creating a favorable environment for combat operations and completing the mission. Uganda People's Defense Forces initiatives on CIMIC have been instrumental in shaping people's perception and fostering positive relations between the military and the local communities. These programs have promoted community engagement, socio-economic empowerment, and addressed critical needs of the population. Through these proactive initiatives, UPDF has over the years established itself as a force for good, committed to supporting and uplifting communities it serves. By offering a range of services and support in the various sectors of medical, education, infrastructure development, and disaster response efforts, UPDF has positioned itself as a valuable ally in community development and community outreach programs. These CIMIC programs do not only benefit the local population, but also contribute to enhancing national security, building trust and cooperation between the military and the local population. Born out of the strategic planning and visionary leadership, CIMIC activities in UPDF have evolved over the years and has been widely embraced by the population both in Uganda and the region. These CIMIC activities reflect a holistic approach to community engagement and empowerment, showcasing UPDF's progressive vision for sustainable development in collaboration with various stakeholders. CIMIC activities and outreach programs in Uganda People's Defense Forces. UPDF's CIMIC initiatives encompass a range of activities focused on enhancing the well-being of the population and to promote sustainable development. These include medical support, which is one of the key pillars of UPDF community outreach initiatives in providing free health care services to the disadvantaged population, including outpatient services, vocations, construction of health facilities, conducting health sensitization programs, etc. Our medical teams perform a number of costly and life-saving operations on both civilians and friendly forces, free of charge. Cleft lip surgery, fixing fractures, club foot, that is curved feet surgery, hernia, cesarean surgery, abdominal surgery, emergency surgery, gunshot injuries, etc. Those are the pictures showing what the Uganda People's Defense Forces does in hospitals within the country and outside of the country. These are pictures showing what we do in Somalia for the population. This is done not only in Uganda, but in all areas where UPDF operates, in South Sudan, the DRC, when we were in Central African Republic, Equatorial Guinea, etc. The education sector. This is treating civilians in the DRC. These are civic activities that we. The education sector. Uganda People's Defense Forces runs a robust and cost-effective education system ranging from primary schools, secondary schools, and vocational training institutes around the country, which benefits the unprivileged children of both the military and civilians. The UPDF's education sector offers similar curriculum as other learning institutions, including adult literacy programs and scholarships for the disadvantaged students, which is aimed at improving access to quality education among the communities. Construction sector. The UPDF Engineering and Construction Brigade has taken over key infrastructure development projects in the country, which has saved the government from bloated expenditures by private contractors, bureaucracies, and delays in the completion of the works. The Army has constructed roads, bridges, administration blocks, water systems, hospitals, and schools to enhance the welfare and quality of life for the people. That is construction of some of the roads in eastern DRC. That is Brasiboga road construction. Go back a bit. It's 42 kilometers from the border with Uganda to a place called Mboga. That's how there was no road to Mboga from some place called Borasi. So this is how it looked like when we were entering eastern DRC. When you go back, you'll see how far it has gone now. That's the construction work our engineers do. Go, you can go on. That is Kasindi Beni Butembo Road. This is a joint project with the government of DRC. It's going to be tarmacked up to Butembo. Other recent notable achievements include the expansion of Entebbe Airport Terminal by Engineers Brigade, building regional immigration offices in Igulu in northern Uganda, and refurbishment of Mandela National Stadium, among many other projects. Now, Operation Wealth Creation. Operation Wealth Creation is a presidential initiative under the Ministry of Defense, launched in July 2013, implemented and led by UPDF in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, with a focus on raising household incomes and wealth creation, transforming subsistence farmers into commercial farmers to end poverty. The project supports rural farmers with subsidy or giving out free agricultural tools, implements, that is heavy equipment and inputs, seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc., to boost farming activities. Operation Wealth Creation also promotes animal husbandry and environmental protection awareness through tree planting and provides farmers with low-interest loans. Key achievements in this project include increased agricultural production and productivity and increased subsistence farming by encouraging a shift to commercial agriculture. Operation Wealth Creation has also helped to create jobs and foster the growth of small-scale business and enterprises. The program has encouraged millions of Ugandans to participate in commercial agriculture. Tarehe Sita Day. Tarehe Sita is a Swahili word, means 6th of February. UPDF commemorates the annual Tarehe Sita, 6th day of February celebration, which is a Liberation History Day in Uganda. In the days preceding the event, UPDF performs a series of voluntary outreach activities in the community as a gesture of appreciation. Tarehe Sita is 6th of February when a revolution against the past government of UNLF was launched by attacking a training school called Kabamba, and which proceeded into a 5 years bush war that liberated the country from tyranny. This mainly involves a series of voluntary activities, including cleaning in the cities and urban centers, construction of schools and health centers in targeted areas, and it emphasizes the importance of a strong civil-military cooperation, establishing the UPDF as a people's army. Overall, these initiatives demonstrate the will and commitment of UPDF, impacting positively on the lives of the underprivileged people and the communities at large. Collaborations and partnership. That's a picture showing the UPDF searching teams of landslides in the slopes of Mount Elgon some years back. UPDF is constitutionally established and mandated as per Article 208 and 209, respectively, to cooperate with civilian authorities in emergency situations, civic relations, and engaging in productive activities for national development. Teamwork for the backbone of UPDF CIMIC and outreach programs through strategic and partnerships with key government agencies and non-state actors such as the Ministry of Disaster Management, Ministry of Health, Red Cross, UNICEF, etc. The military can mobilize funds, logistical support, technical expertise, and establish networks to expand in order to reach a wider community. Establishing networks with the grassroots stakeholders through key leaders' engagement, including the clan leaders, religious leaders, and opinion leaders, underscores the significance of multi-sectoral approach in driving a common cause and objective. Key leaders in the engagements is carried out in conflict areas. These are meetings by the commanders in the DRC, meeting the local leaders. Achievements. Courtesy of UPDF CIMIC and community outreach programs, numerous activities have been undertaken showcasing the tangible impact on the communities. The UPDF education policy have had a transformative impact on access to affordable and quality education, resulting in a notable increase in literacy rate. This initiative has created employment and empowered the unprivileged individuals to become more self-reliant and productive citizens. B, the UPDF CIMIC programs have transcended borders to Somalia, DRC, South Sudan, CAR, etc., helping us win the hearts and minds of the people wherever we have deployed and viewed as a force for good. Improving security and stability in the region, i.e. in Somalia, Eastern DRC, South Sudan, etc. Enabling effective military operations in conflict zones through better intelligence gathering and reconstruction efforts. These relationships build public trust, provide a framework for civilian leadership to guide military actions, and enables civilian and military bodies to collaborate more effectively on complex challenges. These success stories illustrate the profound benefits and contributions that the UPDF bring to the forefront in activities other than war, emphasizing our commitment in addressing pressing societal needs, which contributes to peace and stability. Now we come to the last part, challenges. Despite the remarkable achievements, UPDF still encounters numerous challenges during CIMIC and community outreach programs. A, weak civilian oversight and institutions often leads to the military taking over civilian roles. In areas where you don't find NGOs, for example, in Somalia, where civilian agencies cannot reach, sometimes you find yourself involved in those activities that would have otherwise been run by these civilian agencies, giving out clean water, treatment of the sick. There is no way you can avoid that when you are in such areas, which sometimes, of course, conflicts with these other civilian agencies and also even the UN. In Africa, with us, we have that culture of sharing. So when you find troops sharing with the food with the local population, of course the UN staffs will ask, where do you get this? Because the civilians are not part of your logistics, arrangement. Now, fulfilling CIMIC responsibilities on limited resources while balancing troops and humanitarian needs without risking the depletion of supplies. Explain is the same. Addressing cultural differences and ensuring respect for local traditions can be complicated, thereby affecting the smooth flow and acceptance of community outreach initiatives. Clan differences in Somalia is a serious challenge when you're operating there. It complicates matters. Operating in highly volatile areas expose CIMIC personnel and the community to security threats and reprisal attacks, hence hindering the progress and implementation of such vital initiatives. During CIMIC work, the troops are a target to these terrorists and also the community. When you leave the terrorist target, community members, especially leaders, which becomes a big challenge. Lack of professionalism. Military operations adhere to military codes of conduct and respect for human rights. So where you find half-trained forces in a civilian population, sometimes you have problems. You people who have operated in such areas where you have some military that operate like militias, you must have experienced such challenges. So the challenges and achievements are many, but this is what I have managed to put forward, and that's my conclusion. In the interest of time, I will not read the conclusion. I end up there, and I thank all of you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, General Muhanga. You have confirmed the comprehensive role of the UPDF in Uganda's security sector, and I have had the privilege of working with the UPDF in support of CIMIC activities in regional peacekeeping. Let me now turn to Major General Chikunda Harrison Elijah Soko. I apologize for butchering the first name. Major General Soko is the Army Commander of the Malawi Defense Force, appointed on 18 December of 2020. He is a graduate of the United States Military Academy with a Bachelor of Science in Economics and a holder of postgraduate diplomas in public administration and international relations. Major General Soko has served in critical leadership roles, including Commandant of the Malawi Armed Forces, Chief of Plans and Policy, Chief of Military Operations, and aide-de-camp to the President. His career reflects a deep commitment to professionalism, institutional reform, and ethical command. Under his leadership, the Malawi Defense Forces have maintained a reputation for neutrality, discipline, and positive engagement with civilian communities during national and regional operations. General Soko, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chidi. On the onset, allow me, on behalf of my delegation, to thank the Army Chief of Rwanda Defense Forces, General Nyakarundi, for the very warm reception from the airport and all the facilities put at our disposal. I say thank you very much. And I must say again, your city is clean and beautiful. If I'm to vote for everybody here, I would say maybe it's the most beautiful city in Africa and very clean. I've been asked to says something which is common to all of us, which is cementing civil-military cooperation through citizen outreach programs. As a way of introduction, civil-military cooperation stands at the heart of sustainable peace building and effective security operations. In environments where insecurity converges with weak governance and socio-economic fragility, the relationship between armed forces and the civilian population becomes a decisive factor in mission success. Building trust. I will say that again, building trust. Legitimate and mutual understanding between soldiers and citizens is not just a moral imperative, it is a strategic necessity. Citizen outreach initiatives provide tangible avenues for the military to connect with communities beyond the battlefield, whether through humanitarian assistance, infrastructure projects, health interventions, or disaster response. These engagements humanize the uniform, bridge societal divides, and reinforce the armed forces' role as protectors and partners of the people. However, despite its recognized value, civil-military cooperation often remains inconsistent, fragmented by ad hoc approaches, limited resources, and insufficient coordination with civilian stakeholders. To move from goodwill to sustained impact, cooperation must be institutionalized through clear policies, dedicated frameworks, and communication strategies that promote transparency and inclusivity. It is vital, therefore, to explore how land forces can strengthen civil-military cooperation through structured outreach programs. By sharing experiences and identifying best practices, we aim to uncover pathways that deepen public trust, enhance operational legitimacy, and ultimately contribute to enduring peace and national stability. Current practices. The existing civil outreach methods currently being employed are as follows: humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. In the wake of natural disasters, the military is often among the first responders, working along civilian organizations to provide food, medical aid, potable water, transportation, and shelter. B, routine medical and dental civic action programs. Military medical services are extended to communities located near military cantonments and to areas identified as needing medical outreach. These programs provide free medical, dental, and optometry services. C, infrastructure development. Military engineering units assist in constructing or repairing roads, bridges, schools, and other public infrastructure. Such projects leave a lasting and positive impact on the communities, contributing to local development and resilience. D, educational and public relations events. Enrolling children from surrounding communities in military-run primary and secondary schools demonstrates the military's commitment to partnership and inclusivity. Additionally, external schools visits to military establishments and career talks allow military personnel to interact with citizens in a non-combat role. Information sharing and public forums. During peacekeeping operations, key leader engagements and community-focused meetings in affected areas help address local concerns, dispel misinformation, and enhance mission effectiveness. These forums build trust. Again, I will say build trust, transparency, and understanding between the military and civilian populations. Lessons learned. Despite the successes discussed above, implementing effective CIMIC outreach requires careful consideration. The following points should be taken into account when engaging in civic activities. A, clear perception of motive. CIMIC programs must be transparent to prevent communities from perceiving them as propaganda or precursors to combat operations. Humanitarian assistance activities should therefore remain distinct from military objectives. B, proper coordination with civilian leaders. Effective cooperation depends on a shared understanding among stakeholders and a clear division of roles and responsibilities. Coordination gaps can lead to duplication of efforts, cultural misunderstandings, and mistrust between able partners. C, cultural differences. Military and civilian organizations often have different institutional cultures, priorities, and operating procedures. Understanding and respecting these differences is essential to building productive working relationships. E, clear CIMIC policies. There is a need for a well-defined policies outlining how the military should engage with communities in both peacetime and conflict situations. Clear policy guidance supports effective planning, training, and budgeting for CIMIC outreach programs. F, resources. Successful implementation of CIMIC activities requires adequate human, financial, and logistical resources, which remain a major challenge for many military institutions. Possible solutions. Institutional frameworks, inclusion of CIMIC activities. To ensure effective CIMIC outreach, there is a need of embedding CIMIC activities within military policy, doctrine, and institutional arrangements, as it is essential for effective civil-military coordination, as it facilitates policy and doctrine developments. National defense policies and doctrines should explicitly guide CIMIC activities. Clear frameworks will ensure accountability, coordination, and sustainability of outreach initiatives. B, liaison structures. Policies should formalize the establishment of liaison offices or units between the military and civilian agencies. These structures will enhance information sharing and help counter misinformation, besides combating duplication of effort. Community engagements. Building trust and legitimacy requires active and inclusive engagement with communities. The military can adopt the following approaches. A, community-driven approaches. Engage local leaders, women, and youth to ensure inclusivity and local ownership of civic activities. B, needs-based assessment. Conduct comprehensive assessment to identify the actual needs of the communities. Capacity building. To strengthen human and institutional capacity for effective outreach, the following actions are recommended. A, civic skills development. Identify key skills required, including cultural awareness, negotiation, conflict sensitivity, and interagency cooperation. Training tools. Develop and implement dedicated CIMIC training modules for both military and civilian personnel. Resources, which are not enough. Ensure sufficient financial and logistical resources to sustain outreach operations. Cooperation. Foster regional and international partnerships to promote knowledge exchange, adoption of best practices. Communication strategies. Effective communication is critical in ensuring accurate information flow and countering misinformation, especially in conflict-affected areas. The military can enhance communication through the following measures. 1, proactive communication. Maintain open and proactive communication with communities to build transparency and credibility. This helps prevent misinformation, which can undermine operations and erode trust. B, diverse communication tools. Use community radio, social media platforms, town hall meetings, and liaison officers to disseminate accurate information effectively. C, partnerships with media and civil society. Collaborate with local media outlets and civil society organizations to promote accurate narratives and strengthen public understanding. In conclusion, civil-military cooperation remains a vital foundation for sustaining peace and security. By formalizing outreach initiatives and aligning them with national priorities, the armed forces can strengthen public trust, enhance legitimacy, and build societal resilience. I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Major General Soko. As you've reinforced, civilians, the military, and the security sector have to have a trusted relationship, and information and communication are key. So I'm honored to introduce our next panelist that represents a public institution that is closest to the people. CG Felix Namuhoranye is the Inspector General of the Rwandan National Police. Before his appointment, he served as a deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of operations, as Commandant of the National Police College, and UN Police Chief Training Officer with UNMISS, the UN mission in South Sudan. As a graduate of the National Defense College, Karen, and the University of Nairobi, IG Namuhoranye has been a central figure in advancing community policing and professionalization within Rwanda's security institutions. His leadership emphasizes ethics, accountability, and public partnership as the cornerstone of policing. His approach to integrating technology and citizen participation offers valuable insights into how civilian-led institutions can maintain trust in the digital age. CG Felix, over to you.
Thank you very much, and I associate myself with how my previous speakers explain the concept of civil-military cooperation, and I will straightforwardly operationalize that cooperation through citizens' outreach programs as we apply them here in Rwanda. And I put things in context first. In their presentations, some keywords kept coming: trust, legitimacy, participation. Those keywords will be important if we want to sustain this cooperation through outreach programs that will themselves sustain security and become a cornerstone for national development. I'll put things in context. Our defense and security outreach program is part and parcel of a vision forged and embedded in our liberation struggle. In 1994, when the then Rwanda Patriotic Army liberated a nation devastated by the genocide against the Tutsi, this liberation was going to be the beginning of an era where security forces would serve the people of Rwanda and probably beyond. That's the first contextual level. The second contextual level has to do with the mandate of defense and security organs, and for this specific context of Rwanda Defense Force to defend and develop. So the mandate has a dual role, defense and development. In Rwanda, the Defense Force is entrusted with a dual role to defend territorial integrity and safeguard sovereignty on the one hand, but also, and equally important, to contribute very meaningfully to the socio-economic development of this country. This dual role is not symbolic. It reflects a philosophy that security and development must go hand in hand. I'm not the one who said that a hungry population is a vulnerable population. A sick population is an insecure population, and a disconnected population is unstable. That's the second contextual level. The third contextual level, which is very important, had to do with strategic guidance. Our president articulated a clear vision in line with this. First, and right from the beginning, during that liberation struggle that I mentioned, he told us, and I quote, "This army will be the bedrock of national transformation," end of quote. Then, after liberation, he told us, I quote, Rwanda's security forces must be pillars of national development, working hand in hand with the citizens to build a secure, united, and prosperous, mark the word, prosperous nation, end of quote. Then recently, he told us, I quote, the responsibility of security organs goes beyond providing physical security. Security is indeed a priority, but it is a priority alongside development and the well-being of people and of God. He was telling us that whatever we do, we should make sure that this will create a situation where people in Rwanda are able to take their safety and security for granted. And that's 3 levels of context. From the liberation journey, where the army is told that it will be the bedrock of transformation, to the liberation time where the mandate is clearly dual, defense and development, to today where we are pillars of both national development and the connection between security and that's development. So I can't be at a wrong place when I'm talking to you when the Commander-in-Chief has told the Rwanda Defense Force about what should be done. And the Rwanda Defense Force and the other security organs will go to their boardrooms, to their dashboards, to their labs, to craft how it will be done. In your context, I think you call it mission command. So, crafting how it will be done took us to interact 2 big variables, security and development. And the interplay between 2 important variables led us to this citizen outreach scheme to operationalize the nexus of development and security by creating a social contract between armed forces and local populations. What began as Army Weeks, Police Month initiatives expanded into holistic outreach program with activities ranging from medical outreach, infrastructure development, social protection related activities, community policing campaigns, and so on and so forth. Civil-military cooperation, as clearly explained by 2 previous colleagues, in our case, is not a peripheral element of security practice. It is a strategic imperative in our security architecture. Citizen outreach programs have touched lives of Rwandans at every level, in every corner of this country. We have constructed homes for vulnerable families. We have built schools to facilitate implementation of government policy for access to education for all our children, and early childhood development centers, commonly here known as ECDs. You have provided health insurance to vulnerable households and free medical care to thousands of people. Military doctor doctors providing free treatment to rural populations. Examples and numbers are out there and Googleable. Last 2 outreaches alone, medical services reached over 250,000 people. We have supported farmers with land preparation, with pest control, with irrigation. We have planted trees, protected watersheds, build resilience against climate shocks. We have constructed bridges and roads connecting rural areas to urban centers. We have provided water supply chain and systems, solar energy, and other social protection related schemes to rural populations. This model of outreach programs that operationalize the cooperation, the civil-military cooperation, has gone beyond our borders. Rwanda has applied these practices beyond Rwanda, particularly in peacekeeping missions and in other bilateral deployments. South Sudan outreach programs with our mission in UNMISS with displaced communities have reinforced peacekeeping legitimacy. These outreach programs have reinforced our peacekeepers' legitimacy. That's keyword previously captured by my colleagues. In Central African Republic, MINUSCA, Rwandan contingents have integrated some of these outreach programs with humanitarian support, restoring confidence in local populations. In Cabo Delgado, Mozambique, Rwanda Defense Force and the Rwanda National Police have combined their tactical operations with humanitarian support to displaced populations, winning local trust in the fight against violent extremism. Winning local trust, another keyword. These interventions demonstrate that citizen-centered approaches are transferable, even in fragile and conflict-affected environments. The security development interplay underscores that sustainable peace and security cannot be achieved by security forces in isolation. They require citizens' participation and trust building. Citizens' participation, another keyword among the keywords. Citizen outreach programs build the trust and legitimacy of security institutions in the eyes of citizens, thereby reducing the gap between the uniformed services and the local communities. We need to reduce the gap between ourselves and the people we serve. This functions as a preventive security measure, addressing grievances before they escalate into insecurity. Rwanda's journey demonstrates that citizens perceive security institutions as partners in development and guardians of community well-being. Peace and stability are only then restored and sustained. From a strategic standpoint, therefore, these programs are force multipliers. They enhance operational effectiveness by securing local intelligence because of trust and legitimacy. They also secure cooperation because of trust, and participation. They secure goodwill because of participation. Therefore, it is very important that we invest and invest and invest in capacity building of our security forces to balance hard security skills with soft engagement competences. I rest my case.
Thank you, Inspector General. So these presentations are clear. The importance of CIMIC, I think, is undisputed. From helping to build roads, participating in the distribution of healthcare and civil-military dialogues with communities, to helping to build reassurance and credibility. Clear CIMIC policies, guidance, and help lead to effective policies and training and education, but the use and the need for resources, and moreover education at the junior and senior levels across the security sector must be vital to the sustainability and prioritized for maximum success. The nexus of defense and development is critical and has a larger national security implication. The importance of addressing human security issues and basic human needs can be the difference between a vulnerable society and a healthy national security, which leads to greater economic wealth in complementary sectors that can contribute to the wealth of a nation. So we have heard from 3 experts, and we have just a little under 1 hour to ask questions to this esteemed panel. I think we have spoken quite clearly around the issues of the theory of CIMIC, the importance of CIMIC, and we've even heard some great examples about how it has been used in different contexts. But I think that there is more to the story that maybe we can unpack here as a group today. So the first question I'd like to pose as the moderator's choice is to our panelists, and they can have some time to think about this, or they're welcome to answer at this time, about particularly maybe some of the challenges that they've experienced in the resource and communication channels when it comes to working across public institutions, as well as working across civilian communities. So I'll leave that question for you to maybe think about, the challenges of working and resourcing across public institutions, particularly civilian-led institutions, but also where you have seen good practice take place. And then I'd like to open the floor up to the commanders. And I see that we already have a question here to the right.
May I?
Yes, you may. Please proceed.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all the panelists, for your insightful ideas. I'm Brigadier General Simon, Senegalese Army Chief of Staff. So, yesterday in my presentation, I was sustaining that you should have a well-structured and equipped army to be able to take over when it comes to the cooperation, either in multilateralism or in bilateralism. So I again start saying that yes, to conduct CIMIC activities, we should have a well-structured and equipped army. Structures in terms of services, health services, engineering services, and all what you can guess. But also well-equipped, you should have the equipment in terms of health, in terms of engineering, you should have the equipment to be able to conduct CIMIC. And I appreciate your insightful ideas about that when saying sometimes when from Uganda, the general from Uganda pointed out the professionalism. If troops lack professionalism, they cannot really conduct CIMIC. If also in terms of food, you don't support them with your local food, they will prey on the population and they will become unpopular. I appreciate also from Malawi, where you say that it is the key factors for the operation. Yes, CIMIC is a key factor. And also, it humanizes us. Thank you for that. From Rwanda, I see that, yes, it's a force multiplier. What we can do, CIMIC is something that made that accepted by the population. So my question to all of you is, maybe it is part also of the question for the ma'am give to you. Did you receive special funding from your respective government, or are you just managing by your own resources? Because if I take my own example, you know that in Senegal we had a rebellion, Casamance, a long time. So I was deployed there from platoon leader to sector commander, that anytime I had to do something, it was by my own means, the amount of the means I'm given for the troops. Of course, I don't let my troops starving. I will give them the necessary, and when is something remaining, I try to help. So it's really my question. Are you receiving really funding for your own government or administrative authorities, or are you just managing by your own resources, whatever can be the level you are? Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. That is a pertinent question. To say, do you receive special funding for CIMIC activities? In most armies, I will talk about my army. There is, in the budget, there is always the 10%, which is for unseen circumstances. This is what we put aside, apart from what we have budgeted for ourselves. So, when we deploy, we buy extra medicines, we may have extra food, we may have extra of everything little by little that we don't need. So when we deploy, if we find that some of the communities have gaps in whatever they want, it could be medical, our boys are out there to assist. It is the same when there is a natural disaster. We deploy first to provide security. It's in our DNA, or I think all the militaries is like that. But again, you look at the immediate needs of the people. Is it water? Do they need medicine? Do they need food? Before the other stakeholders come in. Mind you, like in Malawi, we have disaster management organization, which is the main focus when there is a disaster. They address, they put all the resources of the nation together. But as first responders, we have to carry a little bit to immediately alleviate the suffering of the people. So to say it's formally funded, the answer is no. The answer is no. I thank you.
I'm going to turn to my brother from Chad to ask his question, and then I'm going to come back to the other panelists to answer the first question that I answered, because I don't think we have completely dug into one of the issues here.
Bonjour, je suis le général Abakar Ibrahim Iga du Tchad, chef de l'état-major de l'armée de terre. Je remercie les panélistes pour leur brillante présentation. Moi, pas une question, je voulais apporter mes contributions, mes expériences par rapport aux actions civilo-militaires. En effet, nous avons eu à effectuer en 2013 une mission FATIM, Force d'intervention militaire au Mali. Arrivé à la frontière, à Manéka, la première ville de la frontière du Mali, nous avons eu à manœuvrer dans le cadre de l'action civilo-militaire. Nous avons assisté les blessés par le terrorisme, on les a soignés et on a encore sensibilisé la population de Manika. À notre arrivée, il n'y a presque aucune autorité au sein de Manika, que des populations et des terrorisme. Et c'est cette population-là qui nous ont aidés d'avoir des informations réelles. Le plan d'opération dans les bureaux ou bien dans le centre des opérations et les pratiques sur le terrain sont pratiquement différents. Et cette population, ils nous ont aidés à avoir beaucoup plus d'informations, surtout dans les zones d'accès de terrorisme, dans les zones où les terroristes ont mis des mines. De Manika, on est arrivé à Kidal. Juste à l'entrée de Kidal, ils ont miné. C'est une zone montagneuse. Il n'y a que seul accès. Et sur cet accès-là, les terroristes ont mis des mines. Mais ce sont ces populations-là qui nous ont montré que voilà, ici, il y a des mines. Nous avons utilisé notre génie pour exploser les mines avant de nettoyer la ville de Kidal. Et par la suite, de Kidal, arrivé à Tassalit, c'était les mêmes problématiques. Ce sont ces populations de Tassalit qui nous ont facilité, qui nous ont aidés de nous donner des informations réelles sur le terrain. Et de Tassalit, quand on partait à Tigargar dans les montagnes, Tigargar, c'est une zone montagneuse à peu près, je peux estimer 50 km ou 30 km à l'intérieur de la montagne. C'est une grande wadi où abrite tout ce qui est de terrorisme, avec leur matériel et leur personnel et leur centre de formation et tout cela. Pour arriver à cet objectif, c'est un enfant mineur qui était peut-être utilisé auparavant par le terrorisme. Cet enfant-là, ce sont les populations qui nous ont dit que c'est cet enfant-là que peut-être il a des informations. Quand on l'a amené, l'enfant il est assoiffé. Moi j'avais un bidon de l'eau avec moi, je voulais donner de l'eau, il a refusé de boire. Premièrement, moi j'ai bu, et quand il a vu que j'ai bu de l'eau, il a bu de l'eau. On lui a donné des biscuits, on a causé avec lui. Après il nous dit, mais qu'est-ce que vous voulez? Nous on a dit le terrorisme, ceux qui sont en train de faire du mal à la population, ce sont ceux-là que nous on veut lutter contre. L'enfant nous a montré tous les axes possibles, entrée et sortie de terrorisme. Ce qui a nous permis d'accomplir notre mission. Et au retour, dans les différentes villes, la confiance a été rétablie avec la population. À chaque moment, quoi qu'il arrive, ce sont cette population-là qui nous informe, même les kamikazes. Donc, c'est en 2013. Bien avant que ça, nous avons les actions civilo-militaires qui n'est pas assez développées au sein de l'armée tchadienne, mais à partir de 2013, nous avons eu à développer les actions civilo-militaires dans chaque unité de combat, même au sein de la force spéciale, ils ont des formations. Et le gouvernement tchadien a mis un budget spécial pour les actions civilo-militaires. Et nous construisons des ponts pour faciliter les axes, des routes, et on assiste au soutien sanitaire, de médicaments, et on assiste aussi dans de construction et les inondations. Aujourd'hui, l'armée tchadienne avait déjà, je pense, 90% de confiance de la population tchadienne. Cette population coordonne étroitement avec l'armée. Et surtout, encore un deuxième exemple que je voudrais donner au niveau du lac Tchad, le phénomène de Boko Haram qui vit aujourd'hui sur le lac. C'est les populations du lac, ce sont elles-là qui nous donnent toutes les informations de chaque mouvement de Boko Haram. Aujourd'hui, les éléments de Boko Haram ne viennent pas au Tchad. Ils opèrent dans d'autres frontières, à peu près vers les frontières du Nigeria, du Niger, mais côté tchadien. Ils ne viennent pas. Quand ils viennent, ce sont les pêcheurs, les populations aux alentours. Ce sont elles qui viennent informer l'armée, et l'armée, il opère pour exterminer cela. Donc, je suis tout à fait d'accord sur les interventions des deux généraux. Il faut, cette action civilo-militaire, ça construit la confiance entre le civil et le militaire. Il faut toujours construire. Et ça contribue à la stabilité et à la paix. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I want to maybe just reinforce what you are saying, which is an emphasis on community-centric approaches, and your engagement and collaboration and partnership with the community was key to, as you pointed out, early warning systems, intelligence gathering, things that are done not in a nefarious way, but in a positive, collaborative, and cooperative space with communities. When AFRICOM was first stood up, we had a series of civilian cooperation programs that we did in vaccinating goats. And it was very hard to explain back to the White House why we were spending money and resources on vaccinating goats. And we explained that in many African countries, pastoralist communities, and many of the military were engaged in multiple jobs, like our National Guard. They were farmers, they were agriculturists, they were pastoralists. And the importance of building trust with the community was key to our success in the fight against terrorism where we were working on the continent. So I want to maybe come back to our panelists, because I think you also honed in on something which is resourcing. There are dedicated resources in your country to be able to work on CIMIC, as there are in the United States. We have whole offices that are engaged in this activity. But it's not the same across many of the countries across Africa. Many of the militaries perform civilian roles or perform forest ranger roles or other types of roles that are not necessarily specific to defense and national security. So I want to open up to talk about the resource question, because it's all fine to talk in theory about the things that we would like to do and how we would like to achieve them. But there are challenges in ensuring that there's adequate resourcing, education, and even a skill set to understanding how to engage with the population. So let me turn first to our public institution of the police and see how we can address this issue and how it is handled here in Rwanda.
Merci, mon général, d'avoir partagé votre expérience. Vous avez justement renforcé l'importance de la confiance, de gagner la confiance. It has helped me answer actually a combination of questions. The challenges that you posed, the issue of resources, and the importance of participation. To me, one of the biggest challenge is coming from inside, from us, rather than from people we engage. Because there is always that issue of one, resistance to enter into this from our own forces. Secondly, this resistance is reinforced by the excuse that this thing is very expensive, costly, no resources, and that's combination of not willing to go in and having a very valid excuse will make our forces from different corners of our countries engage differently at different levels. But when you really operationalize this in a well-structured manner, you end up realizing that it is even more cost-effective, very cost-effective. I'm using my case to demonstrate how it is cost-effective. We deal with criminals and crime and insecurities. There are two ways of dealing with it. As police force, dealing with criminality and insecurities and criminals single-handedly. It is possible. It is done in some part of our regions and continent. Or let communities play a big part, probably the biggest part, in dealing with insecurities and criminals. It is also possible. Actually, that's the approach we do here, we use here in Rwanda. Crime emanates from a community, originates from a community, and is committed by a member of a community, and will affect the community. And the criminal will run back to the community. How dare you, police force, coming to deal with this crime without that community? So when you send back that responsibility to the community, it becomes very easy, cost-effective to deal with the crime using people affected by that crime and where the criminal has run to. So it is only after you have dealt effectively with it that you realize that it is more cost-effective. So the excuse of resources can be done by people who are already in the mindset of resistance to enter into this scheme. Number two, the other challenge can come from the other side. That's why my last point in my presentation was saying, how do we educate ourselves and our forces to balance between hard skills, military skills, forces, with soft skills, engagement. So it is probably how we engage them that doesn't facilitate their immediate buying of the approach. So you may encounter some resistance from that side, probably because of how you approached them. It is true that resources are an issue indeed. But if you have made civil-military cooperation using these outreach programs part and parcel of the whole, doctrinal, then you budget for it from the beginning. It's not an ad hoc exercise. It's part and parcel of you. It is a strategy to achieve confidence, trust, legitimacy, which will help you achieve sustainable security. Therefore, it's a tool to use for you to get there. Then you must budget for it, however costly it is, but it is costly because it will make you get there. Because if you don't get there, it is even more expensive. Thank you.
I think in my brief I mentioned trust several times. For the Malawi Army, is totally trusted by the community. However, or maybe before I go to the however, we are always the first responders to any disaster, natural disaster. We are the first responders. However, we deploy with only the military resources. I mentioned the 10%, which is like the contingent, which may not really solve the immediate problems that the people on the ground are facing. Where are the other resources? We have Department of Disaster Management in Malawi. It's a central point where all the resources are grouped. But they may not move at the speed that the military moves. There is some sort of bureaucracy. We respond within maybe 12 hours to 24 hours. But the other organization may respond in 4 days, 5 days. And yet the people on the ground are suffering. The issue is the resources are not stocked in advance to say when there is disaster, we pick these ones. It is that time when they start mobilizing the resources. By the time they are being deployed to an affected area, it's too late. Our resources as the military may be depleted by that time. A good example is we carry extra tentage. We may have 30 tents, which are for our use. But when we are on the ground, we give these tents to the affected people. Believe me, at the end, they are never recovered going back to the barracks. So it is an indirect donation to the community. Maybe I should stop there. Thank you very much.
I apologize, I'm not able to see who is raising their tent card, but I know we had one person on the left here, I think from Egypt, and then General Nakarundi after, please.
بس عشان الترجمة هتكلم عربي.
I will speak in Arabic.
طبعا في البداية طبعا بوجه شكر
In the beginning, I want to thank the organizers and the coordinator and all the colleagues who have organized this symposium. And I also want to thank the organizers for choosing this very, very dynamic
dynamic title.
we know that it is important that we secure our boundaries, and this is the job of the police. But we are talking about the boundaries where the common people are, the citizens are. So for them, the owners of those areas should be aware that the government forces will come to protect them, but in the first place, they are there in the first place. And therefore, we need to be so close with the civilians. And I think this topic needs more time to be talked about, because building confidence needs time. And we think that I want to talk about Egypt between 2011 and 2014. I want to say that when we talk about conflict areas or areas where there is terrorism, it is very important to deal with the civilians. And I think that this is over 10 years, you can work on building confidence. And I say that for us, we were the program, 10 years program to build confidence. And we tripled our efforts to work with the civilians, and it has helped us a lot in dealing with the terrorists. And that is also, like we have already mentioned here, that it helps to protect the civilians themselves. And there is something very important I want to mention. So, if we want to fight terrorism, we need the structures, we need development. If people have development, if people have services, all that the communities need, if they are there, then the terrorists have no justification to be there, and even the civilians who would have cooperated with them would find no reason to work to them. And also there is an issue after the conflict, after the war. There is a very, very long plan, very many steps we need to take up to work on the reconstruction, building confidence. And this is also very important. And we need to make sure that terrorism does not deny us a chance of development. And therefore, we need to make a difference between fighting terrorism and enabling development to go ahead. And also, we need to help to look at the areas which are most remote, which don't have a chance of development, and we force development there. We force infrastructure to be there. Our efforts should be targetful, and people who are working should work whether they agriculturists in their area. We need to work to give them the opportunity to exercise their normal activities. And so here I emphasize the importance of the army in these other services, including construction, and so that we also know that we can engage the soldiers or the army in a number of projects which can give services to the poor communities. We used to have we had a problem of awareness, and this is a war where awareness is very important. It affects development, it affects confidence, it affects trust, and so we know that awareness can disturb so many things. Terrorists use the lack of awareness in these areas. They use the media, they use there is a lot in social media and all other ways. So awareness, we take it to be a war, serious war that we need to look at, and we have to have a plan to fight this war with the terrorists in the battlefield. Where is the battlefield? The battlefield are the citizens, and we think that it is, and this is a very big war, big war. And whatever you are doing here can go down to zero when you fail in awareness, when you lose the confidence of the populace and they turn to the other side. So you will end up having negative forces. And I think that that is an idea which I am suggesting we should talk. We should have plans to have that war of awareness. We use all the possibilities which we can use. We use all the channels. We use the media, and so that we protect the achievements that we have. And also, we should have legitimacy of this activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. General Nakurundi.
Let me first of all thank our very able moderator and the panelists, and also thank my brother from Malawi for his kind words about the hospitality, which I think is the African hospitality, and about the city of Kigali. I hope you buy a plot before you go back to Lilongwe. In the background paper we have shared with all of you on this topic, it was indicated that, and we agree that one of the key successes of CIMIC is creating interagency CIMIC councils or committees, linking defense, interior or local government and development ministries to align interests, interests with, or to align exactly the outreach with the national priorities. While I know that we do that in Rwanda, and you have heard the IGP repeatedly saying defense and security organs, he may wish, if he has time, also elaborate on other agencies, because I know in Rwanda it includes ministries, many ministries, and you have committees from national level to lower levels. So this is in Rwanda is the case, is the intelligence, and this helps to make it not only a military or police activity, and this helps to ensure sustainability of the project we are doing. And of course, here, the defense and security organ remain the lead, but all other agencies and ministries are involved. The IGP may elaborate on that if we feel the necessity. So, and this also help to avoid what the Army Commander of Malawi mentioned about perception, propaganda, and so I want to know from Uganda, maybe Malawi, and the other countries around the table, how is this organized? Is it strictly a military or police activity, or it's a national? It involves other ministries and agencies? I thank you for that.
Let me turn to Lieutenant General Buratai to ask his question as well, and then open the floor to any to answer both General Nakarundi's question and other questions that have been posed.
Thank you very much, Chidi, for this opportunity.
I want to also thank the panelists for very incisive contributions. I want from the presentations so far, from the panelists and of course from the floor, we can identify two distinct lines of CIMIC operations. One is the peacetime, and second is the operational line. And within this operational line, you may have the conventional border areas, or the counterinsurgency now that we have, that is ravaging most parts of Africa. But I want to introduce the third one. Charity is said to begin at home. While I was in service as Chief of Army Staff, we introduced the third one, which is a community-based project or constituent projects, which will focus, or which has been focusing on the service personnel itself. We've had experiences, and probably from your different armies also, the military. There are some generals, when they retire, they cannot go back to their homes. It will be so aggressive that he has not contributed anything to the community. This is CIMIC. As I said, it begins at home. And you must win the minds, the hearts and minds of your people to give that support. And it impacted greatly to the communities that we came from, our constituencies. We came from them, and we must make impact. And they must accept us, and they must support the government based on what we are presenting to them. So extending it to this area is very, very important, because you will get the support at the peacetime period. When the situation arises, they will give the whole support to the government policies and projects. And if there are crises, they will always reach you and tell you this is what is happening at your constituency. Because some officers, some generals don't have control, or they cannot have access to their communities, and there is so much probably aggression. There is poverty in some areas, there is lack of water, lack of health facilities, and roads. So we introduced this in the Nigerian Army, where we had officers identifying specific projects within their own communities, and it's budgeted, and we advance the money. We get a reliable contractor who will do that, and he is given the fund and executed and followed up. Virtually, when I started, and it's still continuing, not only within the Army, but the Navy and Air Force have also taken up. So this is key, in the CIMIC relations, our CIMIC direction. We must take it while we focus on community based on either disaster environment or counterinsurgency operations or border crisis or conflict areas, to make sure that they get this assurance, building confidence, to get information, as the Chadian General said, and in fact all the Inspector General of Police and the chiefs here who have spoken. It's very important. You get intelligence, you get the support. It will help you to further achieve the humanitarian, objective of your operation. So I think if this one is captured within the armies, it will help a lot. And you only need to see how your people will receive you at the end of your retirement. You go home, and they will be happy to receive you. You've made impact physically there. I give you a story. For several years, a community in Edo State, and my first chief of, the second chief of military
civil military commander, or what do you call it, the chief of civil military relations, took the project to his community. The politicians couldn't achieve that. We are not going into politics, but the point is, that's their primary responsibility. But for many years, they've never gotten water, borehole water or tap water, until when that project was executed. And that officer, today, he will raise his head high, going back to his community to be well received. So this is my addition to what all have been discussed. Thank you.
I'm looking around the room, but maybe I'll take the liberty of answering General Nakarundi's question about the security architecture, the national security architecture, or the whole of government approach that I know is at least used in the US context. I was going to ask how many of you have state partnership programs in your countries? Just by a show of hands. Do you know if you have a state partnership program? I can tell you that you do. I can tell Senegal has Vermont. I know that Rwanda has Nebraska. And these are state-level programs that come from the United States. How many of you had Millennium Challenge Corporation programs, infrastructure development programs in your country? I can tell you all of those who did. 35% of our programs were in Africa. They were in Senegal, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire. They were around the continent. What I'm trying to allude to here is the whole of government approach that includes civil military institutions or civilian institutions that are performing security functions, economic security, human security, as the Inspector General talked about, that help contribute to a greater development and secure nation. That was the US's approach. And it happened from different parts of our government. When you hear the US talk about the whole of government approach, it means Congress has had to sign off on legislation that says Africa should get money in these areas. It says that our defense budget should have a certain amount allocated for defense works and cooperation. It says that our development agencies, at the time USAID and the Millennium Challenge Corporation, should also engage as a part of our national security apparatus in our architecture. So part of knowing that, though, is knowing whether you know in your own countries where to go to get certain resources to meet the civil military needs or civil security needs in your country. So that's the example of the United States. But I think to General Nakarundi's question, we work together in the Defense Department. He also had to go to the State Department. He spent many times going up to the Hill, going to each different department in the US security architecture to get the resources that were needed for the military and the security of his country. So that's my example. What's yours? Okay, this in itself is a problem. If you're not educated on knowing where to get this in your country, how can you ask for the resources? How can you justify and explain the need for the resources to do the work that you do? So maybe that's something that we should take back as an example of an outcome of this. But I see the director from Senegal who's raising his hand in the back.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Following up to your question, which is for me is legitimate and it's normal. But now when you get those funding, I'm coming from the civilian part of the equation. When you get those funding, what is the mandate behind funding, US funding government in Africa? Because these fundings are not just funding to support the military, to support the civilians or the programs. There is also US government objectives to support this funding, to put these fundings on the table. And sometimes these fundings comes with some rules and regulations. You can't use it for this, you can't use it for that. So at the end of the day, sometimes you have access to these fundings, then what you think is paramount to your community is important to your community might not be listed in the documents of the funding. How do you go about this? Because we know that European Union, American government, they put in funding on the table to support our militaries, to support our countries. But behind, there is also their own objectives. And sometimes you want to build a school and they will tell you, no, you should just put something else. But you know your population doesn't need that. How do you go about this for those who have benefited for these fundings? Because from my background, from working in international development for many years, that is why I got out of this. Sometimes they are not here to develop. These fundings are not here. These partners are not here to develop, to help us. So, and sometimes you have the money, but you don't know what to, you want to use it for something else, but you cannot, because there are some rules that comes with it. So not every money is good. We need to be watchful. Thank you.
Well, I'll close that one very quickly because we're not here to discuss U.S. interests in Africa or resourcing. But I think you've answered the question yourself in that there are various streams of money. There are various countries who can provide money. Those who you want to go to and get money from, yes, they're going to have restrictions and they're going to have regulations on that. If you don't want that money, you don't have to take it. You can do actually what was discussed yesterday in the panel about becoming independent off of resourcing from other areas. Of course, if I'm giving you my money, there's an interest behind it. I want to see the stability, I want to see the healthiness, I want to see a relationship and a partnership that is built. I think that there has been an answer to this question in the human capacity and the human resourcing of nations. And investing in that, I think is an outcome, I think is a necessary investment that needs to happen across all countries. As you said, the development world has become an aid space of just going and asking for money. For what? You have resources at home. You have human resources at home. If you really need those resources, you have to really assess whether or not what it is that you need is really helping your country, or if you're trying to build some other interest, whether it's a partnership with a foreign nation or something else. So understanding the crux of where you're coming from that argument is going to be key to how you accept and then utilize resources. So that's not the panel discussion here, and we can definitely have this debate outside, but I think there is an independence upon resourcing that is part of a mindset that needs to change when it comes to development. But I thank you for the question. Great. I have one question here from Burkina Faso, and then also from Central African Republic. Oh, sorry. Is it Chad again? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Madam. I'm Colonel Romba Ahmed from Burkina Faso, Chief of Army Staff. In pursuit of what the previous interviewer said, I have to share my experience from my country. In the past, in 2018-2019, we used to benefit from USA Embassy for CIMIC activities. It is the same. They want us to organize some sporting challenges, providing humanitarian assistance to local population, sometimes revamping some infrastructure. But later, you know that my country is struggling against story for almost 10 years now. At the beginning, in 2015-2016, we were lacking manpower to deploy troops everywhere. So the terrorists, when they get into our country, the time they attack a village, with time the information get the operating unit, the terrorists already did harm to the local population and flew away. So one day in operation, we try to discuss, to interact with local population in the village. They say that it's good, you are providing us healthcare, humanitarian assistance, but this is not our real need. we want security. So we know that we don't have enough manpower to be everywhere. What we are requesting from you is that train us and give us weapons so that we can defend ourselves. This is our real need. We want security. So at the beginning, our government was reluctant to provide training and weapons to the civilian. But later, we are compelled to do that. We provide them training for a couple of weeks, provide them weapons, and we noticed that when we arrived in the village, they managed to organize some resistance before army come. So what I am trying to point out here is that we cannot every time limit similar activities to the traditional things. As I participated in many peacekeeping operations in Sudan, Mali, I have been Central Africa Chief of Operation for almost 2 years. It is the same, but sometimes we are not addressing the real needs of the population. My second point, in the presentation shared by the panelists from Uganda, I saw in the picture soldiers doing engineering work without local population. Sometimes what I notice, when military are doing some engineering work or community work, we don't see local population with them working together. They tend to let military do the work. This is a illustration that there is a lack of interaction. So this is very also important. We need to get them into our project so that we are going to get better result. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I want to maybe end on that because I think you've identified not just the questions that we've all been talking about, but the real crux of the issue, which is understanding what the population needs and how the security sector and civilian institutions can actually answer those needs. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to answer that question at this moment, but I will ask that those who are taking notes for this session will put that down as a follow-up to how we should address maybe the next steps and strategies for making sure that there's a connection between understanding the population needs, integrating the community so that the outcomes are both effective for the security sector and the community. So thank you for your intervention. I'd like to ask you all to, sorry. I've been told, unfortunately, that we are over time. I have been out of the military community too long, and so I have taken 20 extra minutes and want to give you an opportunity to stretch your legs and have a coffee break. But I'd like to ask you all to help me thank all of our panelists for their interventions, and then all of you all for your active participation in this discussion today. Your examples have been exemplary. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause to our excellent panel. Over to my administrative MC.
Thank you, sir. We'll take our coffee break, and we'll be back for the next panel session at 11:30. And for our exiting process, this time around, I will request all distinguished heads of delegates and generals present to walk out first through the back door to the second floor for their coffee break. And then after they've exited, the rest of us will also walk out through the same door to have our coffee break in the normal area. I will kindly request everyone to keep time so that we'll finish our program on the estimated time. Thank you, sir.